This is a video over the different laws of exponents. In this first slide, we have all the vocabulary that goes along with exponents. So an exponent is also known as a power, and it tells us how many times to multiply a number by itself. So, for example, x to the fourth means x times x times x times x, so 4 times. The base is the number that's being raised to a power, or the number being multiplied. So the base for this example was x. Power is just another name for an exponent. Product means multiplication. Here you have an example of the different ways you can write multiplication. And quotient means division, and it can be written 2 ways. So there's your 2 examples for division. This slide talks about the product rule. So the rule is you keep the base, you add the exponents. Now for this rule to work, the bases have to be the same. So in this example, I have bases that are both a, so I could do this rule. So I'm going to do, if I have a to the m times a to the n, I'm going to have a to the m plus n. Why does the rule work the way it does? So if you look over here at this first example, x to the third times x to the eighth. We just said on the previous slide, x to the third means x times x times x 3 times. If I have x to the eighth, it's the same thing 8 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's my expanded form. If you were to count all of those, you're going to have 11. So product rule says, instead of writing all that out, we're going to add those exponents together, and that gets us 11. When you do examples, you don't have to show me this step. I'm just telling you that is what's happening. So for the next one, expanded form, 2 to the fourth, that's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 4 times. 2 to the second, 2 times 2. If I just use the product rule, 2 to the fourth times 2 to the second, I'm going to add those exponents together. That's really 2 to the sixth. This last time, I have x squared, so that's x times x. And then I have 1y, so we'll just carry that down. The next one, I have x to the third, that's x times x times x. And I have y to the second, that's y times y. So there's my expanded form. Now remember from before, I can only do this rule with things that are like bases. So I'm only going to combine these x's and combine the y's. There's no way to do both at the same time. So for my product rule, I have x's, and then I have 2 plus 3. I have y's, 1 plus 2. Which means I have x to the fifth, y to the third. The next rule is the quotient rule. So again, the bases have to be the exact same. So I have a base of x and a base of x. If that's the case, then I am just going to take the base and keep it, so x, and I'm going to subtract the exponent. So the top, the numerator exponent, minus the denominator, so m minus n. The expanded form for this first example, I have 3 to the fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3 to the fifth. On the denominator, I have 3 to the third. 1, 2, 3. If you think about it, I can cancel some of these out. And what am I left with? I'm left with 3 squared on the numerator. So I would have 5 minus 3. That's 3 squared. On the second example, I have 2 different variables. So I have x's and I have y's. So I'm going to line those up. So I would have x times x on the top and 1x on the bottom. I would have 5 y's on the top, and I would have 3 on the bottom. When these cancel out, I have one x on the top, two y's on the top. So if I were to just use the quotient rule, I'm going to have x 2 minus 1, y 5 minus 3, and we just said that'd be 1x, 2 y's. So xy squared. If you have a power to a power, so over here I have x to the m to the n, so first power, second power, you are going to multiply. So for this example, I have x to the third. Remember, squaring means times itself times x to the third. Total, that's x to the sixth. So for the next example, I have 3 squared to the fourth, so I'm doing that 4 times. So here's the first time, second time, third time, fourth time. Total, I'm going to multiply, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you count, 2 times 4 is 8. So obviously a lot faster to just use the rule and not do the expanded form. So for power of a product, you're kind of going to distribute these is almost what's happening. So see how I have the quantity a, b, all raised to the power of n. And then it's sort of like this just gets dropped to each term, and I have a to the n, b to the n. So if you were to write out the expanded form, so I have 2cd, and it says squared, so it means I'm doing it twice, remember? 2cd. If I were to kind of rearrange this, I would have 2 2's, 2 c's, 2 d's. So what that really looks like is 2 squared, c squared, d squared. And if you think about it, it's just getting dropped into each term. So same thing here, expanded form. I have 3x squared y, 3x squared y. And one more time, 3x squared y. If I rewrote it for you, 3 3's, 3x squareds, which actually, let me write those all out. So x times x, x times x, x times x, and 3 y's. Again, the expanded form takes a lot longer to write out than if you just used the rule. So if I kind of just think about the rule, I'm going to have 3 to the third. Use your brain. So right here, I really have this, and this is one of our previous rules. So x squared to the third, I multiply those, so I'm going to have x to the sixth. And if you look up here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, we did it right. And y to the third. Our very last rule is power of a quotient. So this is really the exact same rule we just did, except there is division happening. But notice I have a divided by b, all raised to the n, and then I have a to the n divided by b to the n. So it's really just kind of doing the exact same thing we did before. So expanded form, I'm going to have x times x times x over y. Times x over y. It's happening twice. So power of a quotient rule. I would have x to the third squared, y squared. Remember previously our product of a power rule. X to the third squared is x to the sixth. On our second example, exact same thing. So I have 2 squared on the top, so 2 times 2 over 2. 2 times 2 over 2. 2 times 2 over 2. So that's happening 3 times. Same idea. So I have 2 squared to the third, and I have 2 to the third. 2 squared to the third is really 2 to the sixth, and then I have 2 to the third. Now, there's one more step, because if you kind of look up at this previous part, these would cancel out. So think about your division rule, your quotient rule. So if I have 2 to the 6th divided by 2 to the 3rd, we subtract those, and we're really left with 2 to the 3rd. Now, I know sometimes exponents are really intimidating, or we just don't feel like we're great at it. So if you need any help with this assignment, do not hesitate to reach out, and please, please, please let me know sooner rather than later. Don't wait until the last second to let me know that you need help. So attempt it. If you need my help, send me an email or reach out to me on Google Classroom.